You know what the biggest lie in personal finance is? That you missed the boat. That because you didn't start investing 10 years ago, you're somehow permanently behind. I'm going to tell you something that might sound crazy. Starting from absolute zero right now might actually be the cleanest opportunity you've had in years. Not because the economy is perfect, not because everything is easy, but because when you have nothing to lose, you can build the foundation correctly from day one without having to tear down bad habits first. Most people with money are carrying around financial decisions they made 5 years ago that are quietly destroying their future. They're locked into expensive cars. They're paying interest on purchases they forgot about. They're invested in things they don't understand because some app told them to buy. You don't have that baggage. You're starting with a blank spreadsheet, and that's actually powerful. What I'm about to walk you through isn't a theory, it's a sequence. 5 specific phases that turn zero into real wealth. Not overnight, not with crypto gambling or stock tips, just pure math that actually works. And the truth is, most people never follow this sequence because they try to skip steps. They want to jump straight to the investing part without doing the foundation work. That's like trying to build the second floor of a house before you pour the concrete. It collapses every single time. Hi, I'm Matt. On this channel, I break down the actual mechanics of building wealth without the hype and without trying to sell you a course at the end. If you want the unfiltered math on money, go ahead and subscribe because we're about to get into it. The first thing you need to understand when you're starting from zero is that zero isn't usually zero. For most people, it's actually negative. And I'm not just talking about student loans or a car payment. I'm talking about the invisible bleed that happens every single month. Subscriptions you forgot you signed up for, interest charges that auto-draft. The average household is now spending over $90 a month on streaming subscriptions alone. That's over $1,000 a year. And if you redirected that money correctly, it could become $12,000 in a decade through growth. The reason most people stay broke isn't because they don't make enough money, it's because they're running a business that loses money every month and they don't even realize they're the CEO. Every dollar that leaks out is a dollar that can't work for you later. And the worst part is these leaks are designed to be invisible. Companies bet on you forgetting. They bet on you being too lazy to cancel. They win when you autopilot through life. So phase 1 is simple, but it requires you to be ruthless. You're going to list every single thing that takes money from your account automatically. Then you're going to ask one question for each item. Does this directly improve my income or my health? If the answer is no, it's gone. Now, the debt part. Not all debt is created equal. If you're paying 19% interest on a credit card, that is a financial emergency. You don't casually put out a fire. But if you're paying 4% on a car loan, that's just a bill. The strategy here is surgical. You attack the highest interest rate first with everything you've got. The minimum payments on everything else stay the same, but every extra dollar you free up from cutting those subscriptions goes straight to the highest rate. This is how you stop the bleeding. Every month that debt exists, it's compounding against you. It's like trying to fill a pool while someone else is draining it from the bottom. And here's what makes this so important. That interest you're paying isn't just money leaving your account. It's opportunity cost. It's the future investment returns you're giving up because that money is tied up paying for things you bought months or years ago. Let me give you a real scenario. Say you're carrying $3,500 on a card at 21% interest. If you only make minimum payments, you'll pay almost double that amount back over time. But if you throw an extra $200 a month at it, you kill it in less than 2 years and save yourself over $2,000 in interest. That $2,000 isn't just savings, it's future wealth you just unlocked. The psychology of this phase is brutal because you don't see immediate results. You're not buying anything fun. You're not investing in stocks that might go up. You're just making debt disappear. But this is the part that separates people who actually build wealth from people who just talk about it. You have to be willing to live like nobody else for a short period so you can live like nobody else later. Delayed gratification isn't a personality trait, it's a skill, and this is where you build it. Once the high-interest debt is gone, most people make a critical mistake. They think they're ready to start investing. They open an app, link their bank account, and start buying. Big mistake. Because life doesn't stop just because you started caring about money. Cars break down, medical bills happen, jobs disappear. And if all your money is locked up in investments when an emergency hits, you're forced to sell at the worst possible time just to survive. This is why Phase 2 exists. You need a buffer, a survival stack, money that sits there doing basically nothing except giving you the ability to breathe. I know that sounds boring. I know cash feels like it's losing value to inflation, but here's what cash actually does. It prevents you from making desperate decisions, and desperate decisions are what destroy wealth. Think about what happened in the last few years. Over 150,000 people in tech alone lost their jobs. The ones who survived financially weren't the ones with the biggest stock portfolios. They were the ones who had enough cash sitting around to cover rent and food while they figured out their next move. So how much do you need? The standard advice is 3 to 6 months of expenses, but let's be real about what that means. You're not calculating 3 months of your current lifestyle. You're calculating 3 months of survival mode. Rice and beans, no eating out, no new clothes, just the absolute essentials. Rent, utilities, basic food, transportation to job interviews. For most people, that number is somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000, depending on where they live. Here's where people get stuck. They see that number and it feels impossible. The answer is you don't save it all at once. You build it in chunks. Every time you get a paycheck, a fixed amount goes straight into a separate account before you see it. It doesn't matter how small you start. What matters is that it's automatic and it's consistent. And here's the part that actually changes your brain chemistry. When you start seeing that number grow, even slowly, something shifts. You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances, and you start feeling like you're in control. That account isn't just money. It's proof that you can delay gratification. It's proof that you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. You've got a gap between you and disaster. That gap is power. And the weird thing is, once you have that buffer, you'll start to see opportunities you couldn't see before. A career move that requires you to take a temporary pay cut, a chance to relocate for a better position. Things that would have been impossible when you were one missed paycheck away from crisis suddenly become viable options. Now, pause for a second. We're about to hit the halfway point of this breakdown, and if you're still watching, you're already ahead of most people, because most people quit before they get to the actual wealth building part. They hear about budgeting and debt payoff and they tune out. But here's what nobody tells you. The next 3 phases are where the real acceleration happens. Everything we just covered was defense. What comes next is pure offense. Stick with me because the math is about to get very interesting. The survival stack also does something psychological that's hard to explain until you experience it. When you have money sitting in an account that you're not allowed to touch, you negotiate differently at work. You speak up differently in meetings. You take smarter risks with your career because you're not terrified of losing your paycheck. Fear makes you small. A cash buffer makes you bold, and bold people earn more. Where do you keep this money? Not under your mattress, not in a regular checking account earning 0. You put it in a high-yield savings account. Right now, those are paying somewhere around 4%. That's not going to make you rich, but it's better than nothing. And more importantly, it keeps the money separate from your daily spending. Out of sight, out of mind. You set it, forget it, and only touch it when the car engine explodes or the roof starts leaking. All right. Your debt is handled. Your survival stack is built. Now we get to the part everyone wants to skip to. Actually growing wealth. But here's where most people self-destruct. They think investing means picking stocks, finding the next big winner, outsmarting the market. And that sounds exciting, but excitement in investing usually means you're gambling. Let me hit you with some data. There are people who do this for a living with entire teams and algorithms. Over a 15-year period, more than 90% of them fail to beat the basic market average. If they can't do it, what makes you think you can? The real strategy when you're building wealth from zero isn't to be smart. It's to not be stupid. And the way you avoid being stupid is you buy everything. The entire market. You don't pick winners, you just own a piece of all of them. And statistically, that mix will grow over time. This is where index funds come in. And I know that term sounds technical, but it's not. An index fund is just a basket that holds hundreds or thousands of companies at once. When you buy one share of a total market index fund, you're buying a tiny piece of Apple and Microsoft and thousands of other businesses all in one transaction. If one company crashes, you barely feel it because you own so many others. If one company explodes, you get a piece of that upside. Think about it this way. If you had bought shares in individual companies back in 2000, there's a good chance you would have picked some that went bankrupt. But if you bought the entire market, you would have survived every crash and captured every recovery. The companies that failed got replaced by new ones automatically. You didn't have to do anything except hold on. The historical average return of the overall market is around 10% per year before you account for inflation. Some years it's up 30%, some years it's down 20%. But if you zoom out over decades, it trends up. And here's the thing, you don't need to beat that average, you just need to match it, because matching the market average over 30 years will absolutely make you wealthy if you're consistent. So the protocol is straightforward. You're putting 90% of your investing money into boring, low-cost index funds. You buy them automatically and you never look at them. But I'm also realistic about human psychology. Take 10% and only 10%, and you can do whatever dumb thing you want with it. Buy a meme stock, gamble on crypto. If it goes to zero, your financial life is fine. This scratches the itch without blowing up your future. The biggest mistake people make here is overthinking it. They spend 6 months researching which exact fund to buy, comparing expense ratios that differ by 0.01%. Just pick a total market fund from a major company and start. The difference between starting today with a decent choice and starting 6 months from now with the perfect choice is that 6 months of growth you just lost. Action beats perfection every single time. Now we need to talk about something most people ignore until it's too late: taxes. You can pick perfect investments and still give away 30% of your wealth just because you put your money in the wrong type of account. The government actually wants you to save for retirement. They've built specific account types that give you massive advantages, but most people don't use them because they're scared of locking up their money. Let me show you the math. Let's say you invest $10,000 and it grows to $100,000 over 30 years. If you did that in a regular taxable account, when you pull that money out, you're going to owe capital gains tax on the $90,000 of growth. Depending on your situation, that could be 15 or 20%. That's $18,000 gone. But if you did the exact same investment in the right retirement account, you pay zero. You keep the full $100,000. Same investment, same timeline, $18,000 difference. That's not a rounding error. That's a new car. Here's the sequence that actually works. Step 1. If your job offers any kind of match on retirement contributions, you fund that first. Period. Some companies will match 50 cents for every dollar you put in, up to a certain amount. That is an immediate 50% return. You cannot beat that anywhere in the market. If you're skipping the match, you're literally turning down free money. Step 2, you open what's called a Roth account. This is where you put money that's already been taxed and then it grows tax-free forever. When you pull it out decades from now, the government doesn't touch it. And here's the kicker. If you need to, you can actually pull out the money you originally put in without penalties. Not the growth, but your contributions. So it's not as locked up as people think. Step 3, if you've maxed out the Roth and you still have money to invest, you go back to your workplace retirement plan and fill that up as much as you can. Only after you've done all of that do you even think about opening a regular investment account. This order matters because every dollar you put in the right place is a dollar that compounds faster because taxes aren't eating it alive. The resistance to this is always the same. But I want to retire early. I don't want to wait until I'm 60. And I get it, but these accounts aren't prisons. There are ways to access the money earlier if you plan it right. Think about it this way. Would you rather have $100,000 in a regular account or $82,000 in a tax-free account? If that $100,000 gets taxed when you withdraw it, you might only end up with $82,000 anyway. The other hidden benefit is behavioral. When your money's in an account that penalizes you for pulling it out early, you're way less likely to panic sell when the market drops. You're way less likely to raid your investments to buy something stupid. The lockup isn't a bug, it's a feature. It protects you from your worst impulses. In 3 minutes, I'm going to show you how to accelerate everything we just talked about, but it requires you to shift your thinking from how do I protect what I have to how do I grow what's coming in. Because you can optimize your spending and your taxes all day, but there's a ceiling on how much you can save. There's no ceiling on what you can earn. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You cannot budget your way to wealth on a low income. You can optimize everything, but if you're only making $35,000 a year, the math just doesn't move fast enough. Which means if you're serious about building wealth, you have to focus on the one variable that has unlimited upside: your income. Most people think they'll just get a side hustle, drive for a rideshare app, or deliver food. And look, if you need immediate cash, do what you need to do. But let's be honest, that's trading your time for a fixed amount of money. That's not an income multiplier. That's just a second job. The real move is to increase your primary income, the money you make at your main job. Because when you get a raise or you move to a higher paying role, that increase happens every single paycheck forever. It stacks on itself. It counts toward your retirement match. It increases your tax-advantaged contribution room. A $10,000 raise isn't just $10,000 this year, it's $10,000 every year going forward, adjusted for future raises. Over a decade, that one bump could be worth $150,000 or more. But how do you actually do that? Here's where most people get stuck. They think, I'm already doing my job. I can't just ask for more money. And you're right. Asking for money without leverage gets you nothing. You need to become undeniable. And that means developing a skill that is both valuable and rare. Not rare like impossible to learn, rare like most people are too lazy to put in the work. Look at what's happening in the job market right now. Companies are desperate for people who can actually execute, people who can manage projects without constant hand-holding, people who can analyze data and make decisions, people who can communicate clearly. These aren't magical talents, they're skills you can learn, but most people won't because learning is uncomfortable. They'd rather scroll on their phones than take an online course at night. Here's the framework. You look at your current industry and you identify the one skill that if you mastered it would make you the most valuable person in the room. Maybe it's learning how to use a specific software that your company relies on. Maybe it's getting a certification that 90% of your coworkers are too lazy to pursue. Maybe it's just becoming the person who actually knows how to run productive meetings. You pick one thing, and you dedicate 1 hour a day to getting better at it. Not scattered learning, not random YouTube videos. Focused, deliberate practice on one specific skill that has market value. The key is to pick something that your current employer needs but doesn't have enough people who can do it well. That's where the leverage is. 1 hour doesn't sound like much, but over 6 months, that's 180 hours of focused improvement. That's more than most people invest in their career development in a decade. And here's what happens. 6 months from now, you walk into your manager's office with proof of what you've accomplished. You don't ask for a raise. You make the case for why you've become more valuable. You're not begging, you're presenting data. And if they say no, you take that new skill and you go somewhere else. The companies that refuse to pay for talent are also the companies losing their best people. And right now, with how competitive hiring is, if you actually have skills and you're willing to move, you have leverage. People forget that the job market is a market. You're selling your time and expertise. If someone won't pay fair value, find someone who will. The other path is to build something on the side that eventually replaces your income entirely. Not a side hustle, a side business, something that scales without needing more of your time. That could be creating digital products. It could be consulting. It could be building an audience and monetizing it. The key is that it has to compound. Every hour you put in should have the potential to pay you more than once. Here's what ties all 5 phases together. None of this works if you skip steps. You can't invest smartly if you're bleeding money to debt. You can't weather market crashes if you don't have a cash buffer. You can't build wealth efficiently if you're getting destroyed by taxes. And you can't do any of it fast enough if your income stays flat. It's a system. Each phase enables the next one. Starting from zero isn't a disadvantage, it's a blank slate. You don't have to unlearn bad habits. You don't have to fix mistakes from 5 years ago. You get to build the foundation right the first time. And if you follow this sequence, debt elimination, survival stack, smart investing, tax optimization, income growth, the math works. It's not fast, it's not sexy, but it's the only path that's actually reliable. So here's my question for you. Which phase are you actually in right now? Are you still stuck in phase 1 trying to kill debt? Are you building your buffer? Or are you already investing but realize you skipped a step? Drop a comment and let me know because I want to see where most people are getting stuck. And if this breakdown made you rethink how you're approaching money, consider subscribing because we're just getting started.